Hi everybody and welcome to Adobe Live. My name is Flynn. I'm here with Demas Rusli for our second part of our two-part series on mobile editing, getting the most out of your mobile photos and how you can edit on the fly. We'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners on the land in which we meet today. We'd also like to pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. Hey Demas, thanks for joining us again.
Hey Flynn, thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm really good, thanks. I'd like to point out you since last time you busted out your completely different camera, which I love. We've got like the wide angle Demas lens happening here. It's so cool. How many cameras do you have sitting around your place?
I've got one main camera and one backup camera.
Yeah.
But then I also have an older camera,
Yeah.
which is kind of like wrecked, like the screen's all smashed and stuff. But I kind of usually use that as a webcam.
Yeah.
And we were having a bit of technical difficulties with that on the last live stream, so I've changed it to my backup camera. Hopefully, it doesn't have any technical difficulties this time.
We'll see how we go. It might be a day of technical difficulties. It turns out that chat isn't working right now over on Behance, which actually I don't think has ever happened before to us. I know it's had some issues today from some of our US friends, so we're working on that in the background. We'll see if we can kick that in. So. Hopefully that'll kick in a moment. If not, in the interim, if you're in our Discord server or you'd like to join and you have questions while we're going along, you can do that. The way you can find that right now is by scrolling down into the description on Behance. You'll see a link to join our Discord community. You can jump in there if you have questions while we're going along, but hopefully chat will kick in a minute. Let's get some music happening. But yeah, hopefully we'll be able to say hi to some friends. I know we had a lot of great questions yesterday. There were some questions we didn't get to as well, so I've got those ready to roll, Demas. So we'll jump onto them in a little bit. But do you want to give us a bit of a overview, or do you want to jump in, or what do you want to do? We're going to start with Lightroom Mobile, I think.
Yeah, so I guess last time on Tuesday, what we did was we edited a bunch of photos, mobile photos, as a carousel, as a set. And the reason why I use Lightroom Classic for that is because you can do reference view, and I think for Lightroom Classic it's much better when you want to edit a bunch of photos in one go. And so for today's workflow, it's slightly different because I'm only going to be focusing on one image, and I know that I'm going to only doing one image.
Right.
And I took out my phone. So what you can do is you can just import the photo into Lightroom Mobile, which is already on your phone anyways.
Yeah.
And so what this means, I guess if you really wanted to start editing on the train or on public transport or on the go, you can start doing that anytime. And then once you finish that edit, you can it'll automatically sync into Lightroom on the computer, which is different to Lightroom Classic.
Yeah.
But yes.
Cool.
Yeah. So should we just get started?
Yeah, we can jump straight over. All right. So I can see your screen there. Let's jump over to so this is Lightroom on mobile. I know you use a Samsung phone. Obviously you can get this on pretty much on every smartphone. I use Lightroom to take a lot of my photos. We're chatting a little bit yesterday about shooting in RAW, and Lightroom allows you I have an older iPhone. I don't have one of the new fancy ones with multiple cameras and things like that. But I've been using Lightroom Mobile a lot lately. Again, just to take photos of my kid, because I'm a dad, and that's just all the only photos I ever take or share these days. But it really does help shooting in RAW, because every now and then I'll take a really good shot and I'm like, oh, this is great, but I want to edit someone out of the background. There's some other parent or some other kid. I'm like, get rid of that kid. I just want my kid. And shooting in RAW just gives so much, gives you so much more flexibility to be able to do that. So yeah, that's a tip for those people that can't shoot RAW in just the native app.
Because Lightroom has that RAW functionality in the app.
Yeah, exactly.
So the photo I'm shooting today was actually just shot in JPEG.
Yeah, speaking of which.
But I could have shot this in RAW as well, but I was just really rushing, and I was like, I'm just going to take a quick shot of this tram. It was coming straight at me, so I didn't have time to switch it to RAW. So I just quickly take a shot of this using my phone in JPEG in auto mode. And I don't know, should we show the final result just to show everyone what we're going to go to today? I guess.
Absolutely.
I have it here. Maybe I can show on my phone. Just on Instagram, for example. Where is it? If it's going to load. So this is the final photo that we are going to be editing.
Cool. So you shared this on your Instagram. So some people that might be watching might have seen this shared on Instagram, and now they can see the whole process.
Yep.
Sweet.
So it's like a motion blur edit from that original photo that I took here, which was the starting point. So we're in Lightroom Mobile, and the first thing I would probably do is start by correcting the geometry and cropping it.
Yeah.
And so down here at the bottom, first I'm going to probably correct the geometry. So there's this tool right here that I'm hovering on, which is like the straighten tool that I love to use. So you click that, and then what you're going to do is just draw two lines where it should be straight vertically. So that one, and let's say this one. So that's kind of straighten the verticals a bit. And then I'm going to draw one horizontally as well, so that it kind of straightens the horizon as well. So that's kind of looking good to me. Then I'm just going to click done. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to crop it. So,
So why would you do it that way with drawing the vertical lines instead of just lining up the horizontal, for example, by twisting it? Does it distort the whole image in that way? Is that why you do it that way?
If you turn the horizontal, sometimes your angle of your camera is not like straight, as in like sometimes it's on an angle upwards or downwards, right?
Yeah.
So when you do horizontal, you're not doing the vertical yet.
Cool.
So you're rotating it, but then the verticals might not be straight.
Yep.
And the reason why you want to keep
Gone.
Yeah, the reason why you want to keep your vertical straight is because then in the motion blur later on, it keeps everything even more vertical. Like it's already kind of half done for you in a way.
Cool. I like it. That's great too.
So then now we're going to go to crop. We're going to pick 4x5, which is what I usually like to crop at for Instagram because it's like the most screen real estate. And then the aim is to put the tram in the center. And then I think I'm going to put the bottom rule of thirds line on that bottom of the tram to just give it some grounding to it.
Nice.
So I'm happy with that. That's the crop we're going for. And then we can just start like color grading it. So I usually just start by doing light, and then just, again, like in the previous episode, color grading is like a very subjective thing. So like it's up to you how you want to edit this and like what colors you like. Do you prefer cooler tones, warmer tones? Just like basically play with each slider left and right, and then just like go by your feeling, go by intuition, and see how like what do you prefer? Do you prefer it to be like more shadows, less shadows? But yeah, I guess for me, I like to bring up a bit of my shadows because like if it's too dark like that, the shadows just get too black, and like you want to be able to see like, you know, what's in the trees and like what's in the shadows so that it gives more detail to your image.
Yeah.
Same with your whites and blacks as well.
And is there anything particular you're looking at? Like I know that with exposure, like sometimes if there's sky, I'm trying to make sure that I like don't lose the clouds or something like that. Like, is there anything particular that you're looking at? Like you mentioned the shading of the trees and things when you're playing with it.
Yeah, so like if I'm pushing the highlights way too high, you can see that the sky just gets blown out, right?
Yeah.
And so I guess try to balance it and try to bring back the sky and like, but I guess there are times when also you want to blow out your sky, like just to get that different effect. So like I guess it depends on each photo and I guess what you like and what you're trying to edit for this particular photo. And what I was saying in the previous stream as well, like each photo is going to be different. So like just play around with it and just, mess around. Like move the sliders left and right until you feel like, you know, you got the right sort of balance.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just gonna keep going a little bit more. So in Lightroom Mobile, it's basically the same thing as Lightroom Classic or Lightroom. Like all the tools are still the same. It's just presented differently, I guess. But you'll be able to find every tool there, in terms of all the sliders and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I just like to go through one by one and see what happens. But it's like a pretty powerful tool to have in your pocket, just this Lightroom mobile app, because you can change so much to your photos.
Yeah, it's pretty
like whether if it's just a JPEG or a RAW, like you can still do a lot to just a JPEG as well. I'm gonna bring out the oranges because I want that tram text to pop out a bit more.
That's cool. And chat still not working on Behance, unfortunately, so far. So like I said, if you want to jump into our Discord server and ask some questions, you certainly can. Johanna will check out those questions and pass them on. Or if you just want to click through, you can click through the video down the bottom right, watch on YouTube, and she'll keep an eye on that chat too. So if you want to just use that, and I'll let you know if Behance kicks back in. So these are just the different colors that you're selecting.
Yeah, so I'm just stepping through the different colors, and so each color I can change the hue, saturation, and luminance. So currently I'm up to the blue, and so I'm just like, I always kind of like my photos a bit cooler in tone, so I always like bump up the saturation a little bit. I push down the hue to make it a little bit more like aqua looking, and then I also like to also brighten the blues as well, so that it kind of pops out a bit more.
Yeah.
And then just keep going up to the last color. But yeah, and then we can click done. You can also do grading, which is kind of like split toning as well. So you can pick, you know, your midtones, what sort of tone you're after for your photo. On your phone, it's actually much more like intuitive than on the computer, because if you're using your finger or if you're using like a stylus or something, it's like you can literally go to like the millimeter to where like what tone you want.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Like you know, we often think, well, I think there's like a bit, not a stigma, but you know, at first thought you would think, well, like the phone is always a lot, you know, secondary, and it's never going to be quite as good. But I do find it really interesting. I think I saw one of your tips. I think it was your tip about turning your phone upside down, because how close you can get your camera lens to the ground to get that angle. So just by flipping your phone upside down, because the camera's right here, you can get really, really close to the ground if you want to sort of shoot up, which is something that you can't always do when you've got a much bigger camera and a kit. You can't quite get that angle right. I find that really interesting.
Yeah.
And I find it also very interesting how you talk about that, like how natural it feels to kind of move around the gradient in this sense, more so than like on a computer or something like that. Yeah,
for sure. Like, yeah, the phone, like it's so small that like you can fit it into little like cracks, or like you can fit it into little gaps when you're like shooting. Sometimes your camera can't fit in there. So like if you want to get a photo, or if you think something's interesting, you want to frame something, and your camera doesn't fit, then like I guess your phone is still a great option to shoot with.
Hey, we do have a question from Light Freeze, so thanks for the question. How can he isolate one color and have the rest monochrome or noir, so black and white?
So that would be probably in the color settings here in the mix. So you would probably just desaturate all the other colors.
Right.
So for example, like orange, like you can just like desaturate everything.
So it just takes out all of the orange hues in the image everywhere it is. Yeah.
But some colors are blended in. So like reds blend into orange, and you know, reds also blend into magenta. So maybe between those two, you might want to do like half or something.
Right.
Like if you want to keep the red in the orange, you want to maybe desaturate half and the magenta desaturate half so that the red stays. And then you want to probably desaturate every single other color in there.
Cool. Oh, I think there's more to the question actually. So they said, like, say I just wanted the train colored. Okay, I think I understand the question about it. So I think they're saying, what if you wanted the train, you know, to be super focused by having it the only thing in color and everything else is black and white? Is that something that you would probably need to do in Photoshop?
No, you can actually do this in Lightroom. You can go selective edits. So like in here, I think it's not in the free version. So you have to have a Creative Cloud membership. Then you go to selective edits, then you go radial blur. So you just draw a little radial blur filter. Then you pick the outside. Is there a way to pick the outside?
You kind of want to invert your selection, right?
Yeah. Or, let's undo that. How do I delete this? You could paint everything outside. So there's this paint tool as well. You could start painting everything on the outside. Oops. For example, I'm just going to do this as a quick example. So I painted everything outside but the tram. See how it's all red? Then you can go to the color and then just push the saturation down.
Cool.
But obviously if I want to paint it better.
Yeah, like if you want to just be super accurate. Yeah.
Yeah, you can go around the tram much more accurately.
Yeah.
So that's kind of showing what that's going to be like, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Cool.
Okay, so then I'm just going to quickly go to the effects and just like maybe add a bit of vignette, just a little bit to give more detail there.
So you can do a vignette like black or white. Do you ever use the white vignette? I've never really got it to work.
Yeah, I've never used the white one.
Cool. It's not just me. That's good. I was playing with it. I'm like, it just looks like it's in like a funny, like a weird frame or something. There would be like grandma's house, like just like this kind of oval shaped frame. But yeah, but the black one almost always works, doesn't it? Like, is it because it draws your eye in some way, or do you know why that works?
Yeah, so well? It just like, it makes everything in the middle brighter, like psychologically, I guess. So that it like pops it out, and like it gives more oomph to the center.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna add this radial filter so that I could make the tram pop out a bit more. So I'm gonna use this radial filter here, put it on the center, and then I'm going to increase the exposure of the tram so that it kind of pops out a little bit more. Oh, there is a way to invert it. You just long press this middle thing, then you can invert radial gradient.
Oh, there we go. I guess that's the other thing with like using like a lot of mobile apps is there's that extra level of, it's like almost hidden user interface a lot of the time.
Yeah, exactly.
To keep things clean, as clean as possible. And also you have so many like different touches that could be used like when people are creating mobile apps. So often it says there's a lot of trial and error, like holding down, double tapping, obviously like swiping and things like that.
Yeah, for sure. So this is probably done. So if you go to the before, that's the before, and that's the after. That's the before, after. And that's done. So I can just press back here. Oops. And so the edit's done. And if we want to, like, it should sync automatically to the cloud, which should sync automatically to your Lightroom. On the computer. So should we just head to the computer then?
Yeah, let's do that. So I've just jumped our heads up so you can do that stuff in the background. Meanwhile, we have another question from Christine. Can you do stuff like that on an Android phone, or is this just an iPhone thing?
No, I'm using an Android.
Yeah.
So I'm using a Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra, but I mean, it works on any phone.
Yep.
So you just need to download Lightroom mobile or Lightroom on the App Store or the Play Store.
Yeah, there you go.
So we are already. If you want to, I think.
Oh, ready
am I sharing screen already?
Yeah, you are.
So I just waited like 2 seconds, and then it synced to the cloud, and now it's already jumped to the computer. All the edits I did just then.
Yeah.
So that was really good, really fast. And so now we don't have to do anything on the Lightroom app. We can just go right click and then edit in Photoshop. So it's just like that fast.
Yeah. That sort of workflow, like speeding up thing seems like such a small thing, but once you get that sort of workflow set up, you just find that you're doing work so much faster and like maybe editing more photos or having more time to yourself because you've kind of nailed that workflow and you just know it works. It's such a huge advantage.
For sure.
Do a lot of things like throwing things into Dropbox and labeling files and naming things and version control and stuff. It's so good just not to have to worry about that sort of thing anymore.
Yeah, definitely. So now what we're gonna do is I'm gonna unlock this layer to begin with, which is the background layer on Photoshop. And then I'm gonna just duplicate the layer. And this is gonna be the motion blur layer. We've got the photo ready. Wait, actually, before we do that, I feel like it's not 100% straight. It's kind of leaning a little bit to the right. So I'm gonna try to fix that a bit. So I'm gonna go Control or Command T. I'm going to click distort, and then I'm going to bring this corner up a bit to make it extra straight, because I like my photos very straight. And I'm a bit like OCD when it comes to that kind of stuff.
You get called out by your other photographer mates, right? If there's like a slight tiny...
I call them out.
Oh, yeah.
But yes, if my photo is not straight, I'll be very unhappy with myself.
Gotta hold yourself to a high standard that you hold everybody else to.
So now we're going to duplicate this layer. So it's creating a new layer on top. And then we're just going to go filter, blur. We're going to go motion blur. And then we're going to make the angle 90 to make it like really, really vertical up. And then we can pick the distance of it. So let's just see what's good. So I think maybe around, 1,000 is kind of good. No, actually 1,000. Let's see. Sounds nice. Maybe even more. Let's go 1,500. Something like that. I think it's kind of nice. And then because it's not really fully blurring the top here, I'm going to stretch it out a bit. So I'm just going to select it and then right click free transform or Control or Command T, and then just literally hold shift and pull upwards so that it covers everything at the top. Because you're already like blurring it, like it's not really doing too crazy things to the pixels, so it's fine. So next, what you want to do is I would probably isolate the tram. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to turn off the top layer and then go back to the bottom layer and then select the tram. We're going to use this polygonal lasso tool to select the tram. We're just going to go around selecting it bit by bit. Just take your time with this, because like the better the selection, the better the edit will look. And if you make a mistake with a point, you can just like press backspace, and then you can just go back and retry the point.
Nice. Hey, while you're doing that, there's a question I think I can answer. So from Lightfreeze, I know you're focusing on photo editing, but what would you recommend for color grading videos on the phone? You can try Premiere Rush, so you can do some color grading on Premiere Rush if you don't have that. Again, just like Lightroom, you can download it straight to your phone. Try it out.
Yep. Premiere Rush is pretty good. It's like quite handy for just quick mobile edits.
Yeah.
And there's also Rush on the computer, so then whatever you will do on the phone, you can jump on the computer if you want to keep going.
Yeah.
And then if you really want to go take that further, it connects to Premiere Pro as well, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like Premiere Pro can be like quite scary for people that aren't used to it. There's a lot of you know, windows and bars and things like that, where Rush is like really good kind of entry level, just to, especially for like mobile video shooting and stuff. And the same sort of syncing thing that Demas did with Lightroom and Lightroom on the desktop, you can do exactly the same with Rush. If you know, once you set that up, it's super easy.
Yeah. So now I've selected the tram. I'm just going to go right click and then layer via copy. So that's making a new layer just with the selection that I just made. I'm going to put that at the very top of the layer chart here, and then turn back on this. So it looks kind of strange at the moment. There's like a tram floating in some lines. So now we're going to go back to the motion blur layer. I'm going to turn on this layer mask button, so that what this means is that like you can paint black or white onto a layer mask and it hides or shows the layer pretty much. So I've got the layer mask selected. I'm going to click the paintbrush tool. I'm going to make the color black. So to just change between foreground and background, right now black is in the background. We want it to be in the foreground. You just have to tap X on the keyboard. So like now we're just switching it back and forth. You're going to right click and then change the brush size to something maybe a little bit bigger, and then just brush out the bottom.
Cool.
So now we're bringing back the layer below, and you can just like fine tune it, right? You can make your brush a bit smaller, a bit bigger until you kind of get it right. Over here, you see that like the legs and the bottom of like the poles and stuff are coming back. So I can just press X again and like repaint the bottom of it so that it kind of hides the legs a bit more. Just do it bit by bit. And if you make your hardness 0, you can kind of like paint a bit further away, and like it kind of feathers it out a lot more. And then if you even make your brush like heaps bigger, you can even like make the feathering a lot more softer and stuff like that. At the top here, you can also change the flow of the brush, so it kind of shows like at the moment I'm just using 100%, but you can change it to like 50% so that it doesn't bleed out as much when you're painting this black and white. But yeah, I think that's looking not bad. So it's pretty fast, right? Like I literally just motion blurred it and then added this layer mask, and then it's already got almost the image that we're after. But yeah, take your time with the motion blurring step and the layer mask, like this process here, because it really like gives that like transition much, like the blending of the hard part and then the motion blur part is what makes the image, I guess. So you want to take your time with it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of looking nice. What I did in the edit that I already posted on Instagram is that like right now for me the background kind of looks a bit like flat. Well, it could be a little bit, I could add a bit more depth to it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just create a shadow where, like if you turn it off, where the building lines kind of end. So like here and here.
Cool.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to just select.
Hey, just before we do, because we've got a couple of questions, maybe we should just spend a minute or two on some of these questions as we're going through. Does that sound all right?
Sounds good.
Cool. So Jessica asked, how does Demas like to organize his photos? I think that's a big one, like dealing with storage and syncing and everything like that. So yeah, how do you do it?
Yeah.
Any tips?
So before I moved to this new place that I'm living in right now, I was just using like a bunch of hard drives, which is not so good, I think.
Right.
So I would try to back up at least 2 files on different hard drives. So like I would have like 2017, 2018 photos on 2 different drives, and then 2019 and 2020 photos on 2 different drives. But it just gets really confusing because then like once you edit one, like it doesn't update to the other one. Like it's like it gets really, really messy. But then I recently got a NAS system, which is a little bit on the pricey side. But it works quite well. So what happens there is that like it automatically backs up everything you do. You don't need to duplicate files or anything. And it's got like NAS stands for like network attached storage. So like it's all on the network so that I can access the files anywhere in the world. So that's really good. If I ever need to. And then I don't have like hard drives lying around because it's all just like in the network. So I can just like edit my Lightroom photos and Photoshop straight off it. Sometimes it's a bit slow when you're editing videos, especially like 4K videos. But if it's 4K videos, I would just use like an SSD, and like I would have all the files on SSD, and then once I'm done with that, I can back it up onto the NAS.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the NAS is good because you can set like 1 or 2 drives for redundancy. So if one of the drives fails, it'll reboot it and regenerate the files for you automatically.
Right.
So there's 2 options, right? There's the hard drive option, which is less like, it's a little bit, it's cheaper, a lot cheaper, definitely. But it's a little bit more, takes more time to manage because then you have to back up everything, that kind of stuff. But then there's also the NAS side where it's like a little bit more expensive, but it's a better workflow in my opinion.
Yeah.
But in terms of like storage, I usually, when I go out on a shoot, I come back, I load the SD card in, and then I make a folder for that day. So I write the date by year. So right now it'll be 21, and today, what date is it today? Today is the 18th, so it'll be 21/02/18.
Yeah.
So it's always by year, month, and day. And then I write the location or who I shot with, or just a brief indication of something that will make me remember for the future.
Yeah. It's like your own shorthand, like whatever reminds, like if you were traveling or something, or on a nighttime shoot or whatever. Yeah.
Or like Sydney shoots with Flynn or something, right? Like I would write that.
Yeah.
Or like Barcelona with Flynn or whatever. Yeah. So I would write that as a description, and then I just drop everything in there, and then that's how I start editing. And then even in Lightroom Classic, the folder structure stays the same as well. So if you want trying to look back for an old photo, you can go back to that date or find the description, and you can find it there.
Yeah. Nice. Awesome.
Yeah. And so I guess that's also another thing with Lightroom Classic and Lightroom. The differences is that like Lightroom, I feel, is just for like single image editing. So like it's always just like this photo, it's on your phone, it's backed up everywhere. Whereas like if it's Lightroom Classic, there's a whole storage system and an organization system built into it as well. So that's the, I guess, pros and cons of each thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. Cool. So we're back here, and now I'm just going to add that shadow that I was talking about before. So I'm just going to select this part right here in the middle. And what that does is, and I'm going to make a new layer. And to create a shadow, I'm just going to select this brush tool, make the color black, and then hold shift while you do this, and then paint a line going down. It's okay if it like kind of bleeds down to the ground because we can delete it later. But this is just adding that, just adding that little like shadow line. It's a bit too much. I might do it again. Oops. Just painting it up and down until you get that like shadow line. So that's fine with me. And then what you can do is you can replicate this layer mask onto the shadow layer. So you just need to hold Alt and what is this? Alt and Option? I'm confused because it's like Mac and Windows.
You're on PC, right? Yeah.
I think it's Alt and the Windows key. And then you just drag up. And now you've got the same layer mask to this guy as well.
Yeah.
And then again, like here, it's a bit weird. So I'm going to brush it out of that layer mask. So just like, just adding that little shadow. I think it's a bit, adds to it a bit.
That's probably not something I would have thought of. Like, what made you think to add that shadow in? Like, add an artificial drop shadow.
When I was editing it, to me, it just looked a little bit flat. Like, I just wanted to have a little bit more depth. I wanted to get the tram coming in from give more layers to it.
Yeah.
And then when I was looking back at the original photo, I saw that like, you know, the background buildings here are like separated from the buildings here on the side.
Yeah.
And so that's why I kind of thought like maybe I should just add this shadow here, bring this line back, and then add that little bit of like depth to it.
Cool. I like it.
But yeah, that's pretty much done. So all we have to do now, let me just try one more thing. I'm going to duplicate this layer. Sometimes when you duplicate it, like it gives a little bit more nicer blend to the bottom. See how like it's like that? It's like just adds a bit more nicer blend.
Oh yeah.
But you can also change the opacity. So if it's too much, you can make it like 50%. So it's like blending it a little bit more like feathered. But yeah, I'm happy with that. And so all you have to do now is click save. So once it's saved, it should technically jump into Lightroom. I think it just needs to sync a bit.
Yeah, it needs a second. We are streaming. Should we take a question while that's going? Let me know if you don't have time for questions, because it's a few.
Let's do some questions.
Do some questions. What is the best export settings for mobile and desktop excuse me, if we're exporting to social media?
I always just leave it as is. Like I don't usually scale it down to 1080. Usually like it's 1080 by 1350 if you're doing 4:5. That's what like the native resolution is for Instagram.
Yeah.
So for me, I just leave it as is and maximum quality, and then I guess I just let Instagram compress it. But then people said that's bad, but I've never had any issues with it, so I just keep doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned on the last stream, I think it was, that you're exporting at 300 DPI as well, which is of course the print, the standard for print. But you also mentioned that, like, you know, it's quite common that you'll get a comment saying, "Wow, like, how do you get your images so sharp?" Something you're doing in that process is working.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I've never really tried to do something completely, like I never really scaled it down to 1080 before I export or anything. I just leave it as the maximum. Yeah. Cool. So now it's back onto Lightroom, and I think it's just trying to sync with the cloud because it's a Photoshop file. It's just maybe going to take a bit longer because it's like a TIFF file now.
Yeah.
So right now, if you see the top corner here, it's still uploading to the cloud.
Yeah.
So before it is able to jump back onto the phone, this needs to be done uploading.
Cool.
But anyway, so Lightroom is right here, right? So you can make extra tweaks. So like I can essentially do another Lightroom grading if I'm not happy with this current grading. So for example, once you see the reason why I would double color grade something is that like once you go to Photoshop and then bring it back, it's completely different image. So I sometimes like to just like color grade it a bit more and just go like, you know, like add it a bit more, make it a bit more green or like brighter or whatnot. And that's a step that I like to do like almost all the time because once you bring it back from Photoshop, it's a completely different image and it's not what you thought it would be maybe like because you're originally editing for the first image, but then now you're editing for the second image, which is going to be the final image. So you should always edit for the final image.
Yeah. Do you ever like get up and walk away before you publish stuff? You're kind of like, I need to kind of like go outside, go for a walk or something, come back, or maybe send it to your phone and look at it on your phone, knowing that you're posting to Instagram before you post. You know what I mean? Like, is there a bit of a like trying to refresh your eyes and look at it fresh, or do you show your partner like anything like that?
Yeah, definitely. Like sometimes if I'm stuck with an edit, I show my wife or I show a friend, and then you know that also if it's going to be coming to your phone, it might look different as well. So that's why I actually prefer to do this step on the phone. Like if the syncing, because I think it's just going to take a bit of time because it's syncing at the moment. But if it was already synced, I would probably do this step on my phone. Yeah, because it's going to be final. Like the final output's going to be on the phone.
Cool.
But yeah, I don't know if it's going to sync in time, depending on internet speeds and whatnot, because this is a big file.
Yeah,
but
it's a big file. Essentially, we're also streaming as well, so it's going to be slowing it down.
Essentially, this edit here, like the Photoshop edit, has already jumped to my phone. And you just need to do the same color grading process as the beginning of this video. And then you export it out, and then you can post it to Instagram. And I export it out as like 100% quality. I don't crop it down or like downsize it at all.
Yeah. And just exporting as a JPEG.
Yes, exactly, as a JPEG. I also like to add another vignette at the end of it, because then it kind of really brings back the tram, and because it's such a like abstract edit, it really like brings the focus to the center much more. So just that adding that little bit of vignetting already kind of helps.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. Like that's pretty much the whole editing process for that photo. Cool. I think it has like a lot of like impact, and it's like has a lot of like wow factor, but it literally doesn't take that long to do.
Yeah.
I think you just need to have like the idea to begin with, and I guess a good like subject matter and the location, right? So this is like the leading lines of the tram tracks leading to the actual tram, and then it really like punches that tram out a lot more when you blur the background.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like how you were saying that the tram was coming towards you, so you had to take the phone really quickly. Like next time you could wait for the tram to go past you and then take it from behind. It would look exactly the same.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. So I was actually like jumping between two tracks. So like one track here, there's a track here on the left side.
Yeah.
And so the track here on the left side shows like going the other way, and I was like, let's get this way. I was jumping back and forth until I got like the right image I wanted.
Yeah.
But yes, that's true. To be on the safe side, shoot the back of the train.
But the tram drivers in Sydney, just like so many people walking in front of them these days, and you're just like, yeah, what's up? It's
it's synced already to my phone, so
okay.
I can just like I probably can't like I'm just gonna show you on my. So here, you can see. Oh, is it gonna focus?
If you hold it still, yeah, there we go.
There we go. You can see that there's two files already.
Yeah.
And then if I click on this one, the edits we just made, it's there already on your phone. So yeah, that's pretty quick, and you don't need to. It's like just syncing a large TIFF file as well, so it's pretty fast.
Yeah. It's super fast. I like I said before, I think it's so good to get that kind of workflow set up, and then once you get used to it, just kind of seamlessly works in the background, and you just find that you're taking and editing photos a lot more. I mean, you were mentioning, you might be out, taking some photos, or you might be coming home from work or visiting friends or wherever you are, and then you're stuck on public transport or whatever, and you could do that edit. We've only been here for half an hour and a few minutes, so you can do that stuff super quick, and then next time you get home in front of your computer, you can make the extra edits super fast. So we do have some questions that we could ask. We got a little bit of time, so should we hit some questions up? Awesome.
Yeah, let's do
it. Easy question to start off with. Will you ever come to Dubai again?
I would love to. Dubai is like amazing place. I was there for 3 days in 2018, just en route to a friend's wedding in Turkey.
Yeah.
But it was like amazing. Like I love the city. So many like photo opportunities in Dubai, especially for someone like me who loves to shoot architecture and urban photography.
Yeah.
It's great.
Do you have like a shot list? You're like, oh, I have to see this building. I have to see this building. Was it like that? Or were you just like roaming around trying to figure it out? Or did you connect? Is there like a photography group there? I know that you go to Japan and you can like hook in with the photographers there and stuff. Yeah,
so there is like a list of buildings that I already know, and then there's also a bit of exploring as well.
Yeah.
And then there's also like I met with a friend. Her name is Jumana, and her Instagram is Pixelville, and she just literally took me around to a bunch of cool spots as well.
Nice.
So yeah, one day was just me and Lucy exploring. Another day was with Pixelville, and then the last day was just like a half day of just like going up to the top of the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world, looking at what the view was like from there, which is really cool.
Amazing. Bit more of a practical question in editing. Are there ways that I can add shadow and highlights on my photos I'm currently using linear, burn, and dodge.
I'm not really sure. So I don't really know much about dodge and burn. I think that's more like for portraiture, I think. I think it's just like, but adding shadows and highlights, you can go to Lightroom, and then if you want to just do specific parts, you can do a radial filter or graduated filter.
Yeah.
Or paint it in as well. So if, for example, you just want to put shadows, or like bring back the shadows, or get rid of the, like make the shadow darker on certain parts, you can just do like the filters for different parts of the image.
Yeah, cool, awesome. Another easier one: favorite city to take building photos in?
Oh, I would say probably Tokyo or Hong Kong. They're both really, really good for urban photography and architecture photography.
Why is that? Is it like, I think about those two places and I've been thinking about like the juxtaposition between like cultural and then like really new buildings and stuff, or is there something else?
Yeah, so Tokyo I think has a lot more new architecture, and like they're all very like I don't know, it's just cool and different. Yeah. Whereas in Hong Kong, it's sort of more like really, really dense housing and like really crazy repetition. So if you're looking for like crazy lines and like lots of repetition in your photos and patterns, I think Hong Kong's a really good place to go. And colors as well. So like all these apartment buildings are like blue colored, then there's pink colors. It's like you can just pick any color building you want to shoot.
That's awesome. I know you love a repeated pattern. You love to get like something like, this kind of crazy kind of grid square, and then you'll get into Photoshop and then multiply, and it looks like, something from like Tron or something. Like it's always like quite surreal, some sort of
there's lots of buildings
future
in Hong Kong where it's like there's like a courtyard in the middle of a tall structure, like a tall apartment building. So if you go into those, you look up and it's just like a really, really cool perspective. And then if you can manage to get to like a middle level, you get like all the balconies, and like it's pretty like a unreal city.
Nice. Another question. Let's go with this one. What are some things that Demas finds inspiration from, such as people, books, websites, or podcasts, something like that?
I guess from like, I do get a lot of like ideas from like just scrolling on the internet. So like Instagram, TikTok, just people I follow are usually people I'm inspired by.
Yeah.
And so if I see something I like, I would maybe save it on Instagram, and then think of ways that I could maybe try something different from that idea, or like maybe take that idea and how can I make it a little bit different, or my own style.
Yeah.
How to make it my style from it. Yeah, I mean, but I love watching like movies, TV shows. I'm not really much of a reader, if I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't like to read. But yeah, I don't know. Just like also looking back at old edits as well. Like I think this probably needs more experience as well. So like the more you edit stuff, the more you learn what the possibilities are and what you can and can't do to a photo. Or like if you want to try something, like having that goal in mind is really good when you're trying to edit, because then you find ways to achieve that goal.
Right.
You find ways to get to that specific step.
Yeah.
And you, like, let's say you want to like learn how to use layers in Photoshop, or you want to like, let's say you want to flip this city photo upside down so that like the person is not upside down, but the city is.
Right.
Right. So you need different layers for that. So then you probably just search on Google how to, or YouTube, how to, edit with different layers, or how to isolate a human from this layer.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Super cool. And does that like inform the way you shoot as well? Like I was thinking like you often put a figure in. So you set up your tripod and you're like, cool, I'm going to take a photo without the figure in it. And then, get someone to go stand there and they're like, I don't even have to cut them out now because I got essentially the same photo and I can just kind of edit them in.
Yeah. So like, if you could do that, if you're planning ahead, then that's going to help you a lot in the editing. But a lot of the times, like the ideas come like a year later.
Yeah. Okay.
So like you just have to make do with what you have, or like sometimes I even bring people in from like a completely other time or location and just put them in. And like there's ways in Photoshop where you can, you know, match the highlights and shadow the tones for the people that you put in are color matching.
Yeah, cool. Probably time for one or two more questions. This is a more specific one. When you were shooting the Taipei 101 day and night photo, did you say at what spot you took the photo all day? Does that make sense?
So that photo, that's coming from a YouTube video I made for Adobe stock.
Yeah.
So those two photos are from Adobe stock, so that I didn't take those photos.
Yeah, there we go.
But on Adobe stock, I found a sunset shot and a night shot, and I don't think they were from the same exact spot.
Right.
But once you line it up, you can't really tell.
Yeah.
But I have done these types of edits before with my own photos where I do take the photos from the same spot. So I would probably take a whole time lapse from day to night, and I would just then I can use the photos as a time lapse. I can use them as a day to night edit. You can just do day edit, night edit. You can like have so much flexibility if you do take that. You don't want to just go to the spot at 5 o'clock, take a shot, and then come back at 8 o'clock, take a shot. Like you could, but then I think if you're going to be doing that, might as well just take a whole time lapse.
Cool. And if you want to check that out, we have a link to Demas's YouTube just down the bottom of the description of this video on Behance now, and also on YouTube if you're watching this on demand. Another question, maybe the last one. Does Demas have his own Discord?
I do not, but I have been thinking about it.
Just another thing, right? To add like another.
Yeah.
I guess that's the thing. So if people do want to connect with you, where's the best place? Is it Instagram? Is it YouTube? I know you're in a lot of places.
Yes, definitely. Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube are the three places I share my content. Instagram mainly for photos. TikTok for sort of like stories of photos, so like as in what happens behind the scenes of a photo shoot or the location.
Yeah.
And then showing the final results of the photo as well. I also post that on my Instagram Reels as well, if you don't have a TikTok account. And then YouTube is where I post like tutorials and I guess not reviews, but like my thoughts on like the gear I'm using and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I have also started like sort of like a mini mentoring program.
Mm-hmm. Oh, cool.
Where if you're interested, you can like send me an email or DM me or something, where it's like a one-on-one kind of chat where we can talk about anything from social media to photography to editing to anything, photography business.
Nice.
But yeah, I've started doing that lately, so that I do have a few students, I guess, at the moment, which is cool.
Awesome. That's heaps good. Yeah. I mean, every time you come on Adobe Live, we always learn so much from you and learn so much from your posts. Like you're always very giving with your information. It's like, hey, this is how I do. Like very, very open to sharing. So that sounds like a really valuable thing. Check that out. Hey, I think we're going to wrap up. Thank you, Demas.
Sure.
Thank you so much for everything. Sorry that guys, chat wasn't live for today. We'll get that fixed for the next time we're going live. Thanks for the questions, jumping in the Discord or on YouTube and sharing those questions, because there were some really great questions today. So thank you. We're going to continue our focus on photography next week with Pat Kay. And so we'll be talking a lot about freelancing and getting like a media kit put together and getting yourself out there as well. So if you're interested in this video, I'm sure you'll be interested in that one. So we hope to see you next week. But,
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks again, Demas.
Thank you for watching, everyone.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure having you. And we're out of here. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.